Hello and welcome to the IDA Consultants review of the regulation of advanced therapy medicinal products, otherwise known as ATMPs, recorded in February 2010. This review is accompanied by a series of mind maps that are available. They also make an excellent reference guide for future use, and they can be obtained by sending a blank email to atmps@damienbove.com. The address will be displayed at the bottom of the screen throughout the presentation. Also, if you have any questions or queries at the end of this presentation, please feel free to go to the URL damienbove.com and contact details are available there. So without further ado, let's have a look at the regulations.
Well, on with the regulations then. These regulations, as I alluded to before, cover all of Europe, which does not mean that they are of no interest to people in the US. As everybody knows, Europe's a huge market for medical technologies, and you will be wanting to bring your technology to Europe in future. And there are a number of processes and procedures involved in these regulations that can add a huge amount of value to your intellectual property and make you much more attractive to investors. Now, the regulation, which is Regulation 1394/07, stipulates that gene therapies, somatic cell technologies and tissue engineered, that's animal and human, products should be regulated via the Committee of Advanced Therapies, or the CAT, which is part of the European Medicines Agency. Please note that EMEA has changed the name to EMA. It's now just the European Medicines Agency. It's quite new. And that's all very well and good, but with all these biotechnologies, it's not a quantum, it's not yes or no. There's a range of different technologies, and it can sometimes be very difficult to understand if your product actually is an advanced therapeutic or medical product. And with that in mind, there are some broader definitions. For gene therapies, things that are generally considered ATMPs are recombinant nucleic acid technologies, technologies that impact on genetics, products that have a therapeutic intent, but interestingly, gene vaccines are excluded from this. With somatic cell technologies, it's manipulated cells and tissues, so that's engineered products, change of use of a tissue, so it's taken from one part of the body or one part of an animal and placed somewhere else. Again, it's a therapeutic or a diagnostic intent. And with the tissues, again, it's engineered tissues, regenerative tissues, and repair or replace of existing structures. The manipulation that hinges on whether you're an ATMP or not is more than minimal. Minimal manipulation is not considered ATMP. There is quite a big list of manipulations that do push you over the boundary, and that's available quite freely in the regulations. Get in touch with me if you want to see that list. That's quite easily sent to you. But because the classification is so important with these technologies, there is a procedure in order to get a definitive opinion on the classification of your technology. That classification procedure is run through the CAT, this Committee of Advanced Therapies, and it's a voluntary, optional process, but if you want to go any further down any other regulatory pathways, you will be required to have had this classification, so it's not really optional. If you want scientific advice, if you want to get certification, the certification procedure I'll come to in a little bit, or if you want to go through any of the paediatric committees or paediatric processes, you will require certification of your classification. So the advice is to do it early. You need to present a data pack to the committee, and they'll consider the mechanism of action of your product and the details of that, the development plan that you've got, your regulatory status, any other regulatory process that you've been through, and your product strategy, what your product's actually going to be. You submit all that data to them, and they will then give you a definitive opinion on your classification. And it's a free process, there's no fees, so I would advise anybody to undertake that at a very early stage, because then you'll know the regulatory pathway that are open to you. as I mentioned, the CAT, I'll give you a little bit more details. The Committee on Advanced Therapies is a group outside of the European Medicines Agency, and they do not themselves have regulatory powers, although they do advise the CHMP. And the CHMP are going to listen to them, so they do have indirect power. They are charged with looking at the pharmacovigilance and classification, as we discussed, for these products. For small, medium-sized enterprises, they will conduct a quality review, look at quality data, and they will conduct a non-clinical evaluation of data as well. This is called a certification procedure, and I'll give you a little bit more detail on that in a moment. They also look after and advise on combined products, so that's devices with an advanced therapy medicinal products, which is things like scaffolds that then have cells impregnated in them and things like that. You'll know if you're a combined. Whilst they do look after combined products, they still require a notified body to deal with the medical device element, but that's quite clear. And although again they do not present marketing authorisation, they do advise the CHMP on marketing authorisation, and so far their advice has been followed. They've one approval and one decline, and one product that has been withdrawn. As I said, these regulations are new, and only three companies have taken products through marketing authorisation process for ATMP. But the data's there, and we're learning a lot from this as it goes along. Now, the certification procedure that I talked about earlier is where you can get your existing data rubber stamped. So you can present a data pack which is on the Common Technical Dossier format. So you're likely to have all this information in the correct format already, ready to be used. So it's not an arduous task. And they will review your quality, so that's your manufacturing and all those kind of things. And they're also reviewing non-clinical data, and they will give an opinion on whether it meets the required standards for registration and future product development, and give you an opinion. So that can be very valuable in understanding if you can use the data you've developed so far and where improvements need to be made. Now, their advice is not legally binding, so they reserve the right to change their mind at any time in the future. And like I say, they look at the quality issues, and they also look at non-clinical. There's a 90-day turnaround from submission to response, and this can be really, really helpful when you're fundraising, because you can say to an investor, this is our data, it meets the required standards. And it can add a huge amount of credibility and persuasiveness to your business plan, and it also facilitates future regulatory activity, because you can go to regulators and say, yeah, we've had our quality and our non-clinicals up to scratch. So where people don't fully understand the technologies, they'll rely on that certification to give them confidence in giving you the okay for clinical trials, etc. There's also certain incentives available as well, financial incentives. If you're an ATMP, there's a 65% reduction in fees for future regulatory activities, which is very helpful. This is because you are forced to go down the central route for an ATMP, and the central route is more expensive, so they recognise that and they give you a discount. SMEs also get a 90% reduction on fees anyway. SMEs are generally unlikely to be doing product marketing authorisation packages, but it does happen, so these incentives are all there to be taken advantage of. There is a hospital exemption for small technologies, but these are for individual custom medicinal products, non-routine dosing and preparation, and non-industrial processes as well. And that can exempt you from all of this regulatory pathway. Registration is, as I said, for the central procedure and the EMEA. Right. Now, there's still some other things to discuss, and we're running out of time on this video, so what I would suggest is I'll put up a part B in which to carry on. So if you go to part B, have a look there, and we'll wrap this up in part B. I'll look forward to speaking to you. Like I say, get the mind maps, send the email,